everybody. It's your girl Jen. How are you today? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here with me all along, you know I love you. Um, it's Tuesday, it's not Sunday, but it has been a while since we had a drink and talked about something. So since my wedding anniversary just passed, and we celebrated it, I thought we would talk about some of the things about marriage today. So let's just first look at how it was thought to have been in the beginning. Let's get a drink first. So for thousands of years before marriage, families consisted of like loosely organized groups, and they had several male leaders and multiple women, and they, shared. The women was shared by the men in the groups, and they all took care of the children. And in this group, there consisted of usually up to around about 30 per group. But as hunter gatherers settled into more like civilized society, there arose a need for more stable arrangements. And voila, marriage came about. The first recorded evidence of ceremonies that actually united one woman and one man dates all the way back to about 2350 BC in Mesopotamia. But with marriage, like everything else, it has evolved over the next several hundred years into the widespread institution embraced by the ancient Hebrews, Greeks, and Romans. It also evolved and was embraced by all different various cultures. But now, y'all, initially, initially, marriage often involved multiple partners, usually female, but sometime between the 6th and 9th centuries, following a protracted battle between the Catholic Church and old nobility and kings, monogamy came about because the Catholic Church they won this battle, and by the 9th century, now monogamy had become central to the notion of marriage. But, yeah, back then, it really had little or nothing to do with love or religion. Um, and I know that's hard to believe, right? So, really, the primary purpose back then was to bind a woman to a man, and with that, it would guarantee that a man's children were truly his biological heirs. And back in those days, through marriage, and don't come for me, this is truly what it said when I read it. This is truly how it actually was. Back in those days, through marriage, a woman became the man's property. Now, like like in the ceremony of ancient Greece, a father would hand over his daughter with these words: I pledge my daughter for the purpose of producing legitimate offspring. And among the ancient Hebrews, men were free to take several wives. And the Greeks and Romans, well, y'all, they were free to satisfy their urges with concubines, prostitutes, and even teenage male lovers. And all the while, their wives were required to stay home and tend to the household. And needless to say, that is not how it is today. Now, if wives failed to produce offspring for their husbands could give them back and they can marry someone else. Wow. Just wow. So, in the beginning, it was all about producing legitimate heirs. Religion was not involved in the original reasons for marriage. But now, when the Roman Catholic Church became a powerful institution in Europe, the blessings of a priest became a necessary step for a marriage to be legally recognized. So, by the 8th century, marriage was widely accepted in the Catholic Church as a sacrament or a ceremony to bestow God's grace. In 1563, at the Council of Trent, the sacramental nature of marriage was written into canon law. And with that, the lives of wives, they did improve because men were taught to show greater respect for their wives and forbidden from divorcing them. And Christian doctrine declared that the twain shall become one flesh. And with that, it gave a husband and wife, it gave them exclusive access to each other's body. And this put, a whole new pressure on men to remain sexually faithful. Now, the notion of marriage as a sacrament, or most namely, a Christian rite a Christian rite, was recognized to be of particular importance and significance, and that can be traced back to St. Paul in the New Testament, where Paul compared the relationship of a husband and wife to that of Christ and his church. Now, other religions recognize the rite of marriage in various different ways. Muslim faith allows a polygamous marriage, with a man allowed to marry up to as many as 4 wives. The Hindu has the profound belief that marriage celebrates the joining together of two individuals for eternity. And they do that so that they can together pursue truth, meaning, and physical desire. But the church still made it clear that men were the head of the families, with their wives doing whatever they were told, whatever the husband wanted, and they had to do. When the concept of romantic love came into marriage, it gave women greater leverage. Wives no longer existed to solely serve her man. The romantic prince, in fact, would want to serve his woman and show his love. But the notion that the husband owned the wife, that continued on for many, many centuries. And as a matter of fact, when the colonists first came to America, the husband, um, it was a dominance, and the husband's dominance was officially recognized under a legal doctrine called coverture. And under that, it meant the new bride's identity was absorbed into his. She lost her identity. The bride gave up her name to symbolize the surrendering of her identity, and the husband suddenly became more important. He became the official public representative of both of them. And this rule was so strict that any American woman who married a foreigner immediately lost her citizenship. Could you imagine back in those days? Now, when women won the right to vote in 1920, the institution of marriage began a dramatic transformation. Suddenly, each union consisted of 2 actual citizens. But tradition still dictated that the husband still ruled the house. The main purpose for marriage earlier on was to act as an alliance between families for either economic or political reasons. More often than not, marriage was arranged, with the couple getting married having no say in the matter. And that goes on even today in some cultures and religion. Over time, of course, many marriage partners came to fall deeply into mutual love and devotion to one another. But the idea of romantic love as a reason to get married only goes as far back as the Middle Ages. And many scholars believe the concept was invented by the French. The French model was the knight who fell intensely in love for someone else's wife, as in the case of Sir Lancelot and King Arthur. And today, most people recognize that regardless of how a couple enters into the marriage, it is a bond between two people that involves responsibility and legalities, as well as commitment and challenges. Now, by the late 1960s, state laws forbidding interracial marriage had been thrown out, and the last states had dropped laws against the use of birth control. And by the 1970s, the law finally recognized the concept of marital rape. Yeah, which up till this time was inconceivable, as the husband owned his wife's sexuality. Now let's move on a bit, just a bit further to include everyone. Now, gay marriage is rare in history, but not unknown. The Roman Emperor Nero twice married men in formal wedding ceremonies and forced the imperial court to treat them as his wives. And today, same-sex marriage is recognized. The core principles of marriage has remained constant, but the history shows just how much it has evolved throughout time. The laws will continue to change as marriage continues to evolve. But I remember when gay marriage became legal, certain religions, they didn't accept that. It was hard for them to accept. Um, but it's easy to see that over time how things have changed. But I'm not what you say extremely religious, but I still tend to believe the man is the head of the house. Don't get me wrong, he don't boss me around, but when it comes to major decisions or who carries the family, it's still the man. And you know, if you want to get married, that's a bond. It's a promise, and some people do it more than once. Some people, some people don't ever do it. But it also is a fulfillment. It's having someone by your side, someone that's going to be there forever. And today people give up on it way too easy. But I think it's something worth fighting for and something worth holding on to. Um, so you don't want to be at the last day and you're taking your last breath and not have somebody holding your hand. But anyways, that's my Tuesday spiel. Um, Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you guys next time on Sunday. I love you guys. Bye.